Welcome to the Science and Spirituality Podcast, where we dive deep into universal spiritual principles and ground them in modern science. My name is Chris Carden.
And my name is Kevin Carden. And we are committed to simplifying the spiritual side of success for you with easy to understand scientific research so you could walk away with practical tools to create radical transformations in your life. Let's get started. Forward to this episode and also having a new guest here.
Yeah, and so our special guest today is Julie Householder, who is a life coach and a Biofield Healing Immersion Practitioner. And she also happens to be my girlfriend, so it's going to be a fun episode.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so we wanted to talk about the topic of forgiveness. Do you want to start it off, Kev?
Sure. Forgiveness, I want to first paint the picture of what I understood forgiveness as before I learned it more in depth from Mary Morrissey, which is all of our mentors, as in the three of us recording, not saying you listening. But before, I learned it from Mary. The topic of forgiveness to me always was thinking like, well, I needed to make it okay for something I did in the past or didn't do in the past, or something that someone else did to me or didn't do in the past that hurt me. So any betrayal, any resentment, all of that had to be like made okay. Like whatever happened would be made okay by forgiveness. But that's ultimately not the truth, because in some ways, if you make what happened okay, you're being a doormat. And true forgiveness is not about being a doormat or letting anything happen in your life again that is hurtful, but it's a change in perception. It's a shift in energy. That's what it really is, which is what we're going to go deeper into. But that's just my perspective on what I thought it was and what most people understand it as forgiveness. But is there anything y'all would add as like what most people understand it as?
Well, I think it's interesting that you brought it up that way, because like even thinking back into my own life before I had this understanding that forgiveness was more of a personal thing. Because you've probably had times in your life where someone has said, like, asked for your forgiveness, or they like apologized to you, but you didn't feel better because they apologized to you because nothing internally shifted for you.
Yeah.
So, like, that happens a lot. So it's like, oh, I'll be okay once that person like understands what they did wrong.
Yep.
And they apologize to me. But that can 100% happen. But then if there's no shift within you, you're not actually going to feel like that, like forgiveness or that apology was worth it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other times where like someone could not say anything, but then you could feel as if you forgave them even though they didn't apologize, because of this newfound perception that this idea of forgiveness actually occurs within you. Like you said, a shift of energy in how you feel towards that person.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not being a doormat and letting it be, like letting what they did be okay, but then understanding that you playing that scenario over and over and over again in your head is really just hurting you at this point.
Yeah.
And that's what you're trying to fix with this version of forgiveness.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a quote that reminds me of that. It's I believe it's from Buddha. Could be someone else, but that resentment or grudges towards someone else is like holding a hot coal and intending for the other person to get hurt. Or I think it's also another quote. It could be Buddha as well, but another one is like resentment is like drinking a little bit of poison, intending for the other person to die.
Yeah.
It's all within. It's the energy within. And I want to just highlight something you said, Chris, that I think is what most people think of as forgiveness is an outward expression, as like an apology, which, like you said, it 100% can happen. And honestly, that's a great step in certain cases, and it's not necessary in some cases. Like you may not be talking to a person that you want to forgive, or they may not be talking to you, and like literally is like that relationship is done. But forgiveness can still happen. It doesn't require an apology, although many times it does include that. But like you said, the shift has to happen within first.
I think that like this version of forgiveness too is really important for people who might have had someone that passed away and they feel that they didn't get a chance to make things right in the time that they were alive, and they think that, oh, like the time is lost now.
Yeah.
But you can always make things right with a person in your head, like with your own relationship to how you felt towards that person.
exactly.
That's like a big thing too. And it kind of goes along what you said about people not being in your life anymore. Like, let's say you go through a breakup, or like you end a friendship with someone, and you guys don't talk anymore, and you feel like that chance to make things right is over. But it's really it's really just not right in your own head.
Yeah.
Like the way that you're perceiving it is making it feel not right. So if you can forgive them in your head, and you can change the relationship between you and them in your head, like you said, it shifts the energy, and that's actually where true forgiveness occurs.
Yeah. It's head and
Uh,
heart, I think. Not
yeah,
only in your head, how you think about it, how you feel.
yeah.
Yeah. But Julie, what's your perspective on what most people understand as forgiveness?
I definitely agree in regards to it being primarily relational, in the sense that it comes up in conversation when someone's seeking forgiveness. And sometimes we'll say, I forgive you, not necessarily for our sake, but for theirs. And when we do, I'm like thinking about all of these moments in my head right now. It's that idea of, oh, I forgive you, and our relationship's going to continue, or whatever form of relationship it is, it's going to continue as is. I'm allowing you back into my space to continue the same behavior. And a lot of forgiveness work also goes hand in hand with boundary work and being able to set boundaries. And this is coming from like me personally experiencing a lot of early childhood trauma, and then as a young adult, abusive relationships. And that concept of forgiveness is not a one and done thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to cling to like kind of like those bumper sticker affirmations, or just, it's like a light switch, and it's not. It's a continual process. And some days we can connect with that forgiveness, and other days we can't. And for me personally, it's been balancing the ability to validate what we experience, the pain that we've experienced, and not get stuck there. And that importance of still validating that, while not kind of being in that place of, woe is me, this and this happened, I'm stuck in this pain. And it's a very fine line to balance, but all of it's necessary. And it's one thing that I just want to say to everybody is, like, if you're really wanting to forgive someone, that's the first step. And sometimes it's just saying, I'm open to trying to forgive this situation or this person. And like, that's where you start. And just know that sometimes it can take a couple hours, or for some, it's a lifetime, depending on what you've endured, what you've experienced. And to have patience and not compare your process of healing and forgiveness to other people's, because every situation, every single person, it's going to look differently and feel differently for you.
Yeah. I think you hit on a really, really good point of like, true, authentic forgiveness is not something that's a light switch and on and off. It's something that you have to work on, and that it's a continual process that you have to do again and again, especially for those deep hurts. Like the deepest hurt that I've had, or at least that I had to forgive, it took, it was an experience that happened 5 years ago. And only recently, when I went to Israel, this February, did I really feel like it was shifted fully. And I had been working on forgiving that for about a year and a half to 2 years, when I really started to actually work on it. Because I thought in the past, and this is, I think, is another topic, is that, there are resentments and grudges that we hold that sometimes are very subtle, and we don't even notice them. It's like, it's subconscious. And it's just even a feeling sometimes. It's not like a thought. It's like, oh, I hate that person, or that was shitty what they did. It's like, just you see them or think of them, and it's just like a subtle, like thorn in your side, and then you just brush it off. It's like, oh, I don't need to forgive. I'm fine. Like, I've let that go. But it's not. Like, it's something that you continue to work on.
I liked what you said about the thorn in your side, because a lot of us, and with every emotion we experience, we have to heal the body as well. And especially when we've had deep pains, that feeling might not necessarily be from our logical conscious mind. It can be in the subconscious. It can be connected to defense mechanisms we've built up to make us feel safer. It can be connected to our nervous system. It can be connected to all kinds of things within our body, because remembering that we're not just logical thinking, we're feeling beings, and our bodies experience everything we go through mentally. And especially when it comes to forgiveness, when it's been deep pain, that feels, in a sense, like I've read and done a lot of research on this with rejection and pain, and even like heartbreak. We feel it, like we're physically, like our heart feels like it's physically broken. And that's where that term was coined. I don't know who coined it, but that's why we talk about it as heartbreaking, because we physiologically, we feel that in our bodies. And so the same thing with forgiveness, when we've been deeply pained by someone or an experience, we have to keep in mind that our body is going to have that response too. And forgiveness also involves the body, especially in cases where it could have been a repeat situation. If it's from a childhood home environment, that's been like one of my life journeys, is really working through the environment that I experienced as a child and bringing forgiveness to all of the different parts and situations that were going on simultaneously in a complex environment that I wasn't equipped to handle as a child. And even as adults too, there's so many different things. So to really notice when we have that, to have grace with ourselves too, because if we still feel something, it's often even like stored in our bodies, and it's our nervous system and it's our body trying to protect us from feeling hurt again.
Yeah.
But I also think too, it's like it's kind of like a reaction to want to maybe not want to forgive someone sometimes if they've done something really bad to you, because I think there's that feeling that if you forgive someone, you're actually allowing what they did to you to be okay. And you're like giving up your power to like sometimes it feels nice to feel hurt, because you're like, no, like I deserve to feel this way. Like this is the way I want to feel because someone did this to me. Like that wasn't fair what they did. And I think that kind of goes back to the Buddha quote too about drinking the poison or holding the coal. It's like, yes, that may be true, but at this point, you having that perspective is only harming you. It's not harming the other person anymore. Like they're not like what they did to you, they did to you, and it's over with. And you're never going to really know how they feel about it. But especially if you don't talk to them anymore, they're like way gone from your life from now. But like you continuing to feel like it's kind of putting you in like a victim mindset almost, which feels good, honestly, sometimes if we're not ready to deal with it, because it's like, I want to feel this way. Like I have a right to feel this way.
Yeah.
And when that happens, like you're really only hurting yourself at that point. So it takes that level of awareness to be like, okay, like, yes, that did happen. But instead of seeing that this is happening to me, like, how do I work through it so that it's actually happening with me and through me? Which is what Mary teaches about a lot too. So I think that's like a big thing as well.
And finding that balance too, because we need to validate our experiences and our emotions.
Yeah.
We have to feel the feelings. We have to let ourselves feel them and not just be like, this is something that happened to me. I am a powerful person. I am strong. I'm whatever. And like, just jump into personal transformation and toxic positivity. We have to feel the stuff. We have to allow ourselves to feel that hurt. But again, it's that line between pitching a tent there, as Mary would say, for years and years and years, rehearsing the same pain stories, or allowing us to feel and then know that that doesn't define us. And I also wanted to bring up too, we're talking a lot about things that happen, quote unquote, to us, things that happened to, but we also have been people that have messed up. And when you're on the other side, really longing for someone to forgive you for a mistake that you've made, or every single one of us, we've all made mistakes. And to recognize that process of being on the other side too, and knowing that, say, perhaps you made a mistake, or at your current level of awareness during a situation, you did something and you're waiting for that apology, to know that that person has their own, they need their time, and to respect that and to honor that. And then also that inner personal forgiveness that we have to do within ourselves, because sometimes it's so much easier to forgive another person than it is to forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we've made and the failures or anything regarding anything. That internal process can be so much more difficult because of the way that we talk to ourselves and the expectations we have for ourselves in our own mind.
Exactly. That's when we began is one of the first things I said, and I always share this with my clients, is that there's, and I don't actually break this down, but I'll break it down in this episode because it's just what you said is important to look at the flip side too, because a lot of what we've been talking about is what other people have done. Like these are the four things there's things to forgive of other people, what other people have done to you in your life that you've experienced, what other people haven't done, like, expectations you had that they didn't fulfill. But then the other two are flipped around to you as things that you did that hurt other people and that you regret. And then also things that you haven't done that you either committed to and you didn't do, or like other people had an expectation of you and you actually wanted to fulfill that and you didn't. So it's those four. And honestly, there's so much that in each of those that we can work on forgiving. That's why I concur with what you said, Julie, that it's an ever going process. Like there's always something to forgive. And even Jesus said that in one of his teachings, that one of his disciples was asking, how many times do I have to forgive? And he's like, do I have to forgive like 7 times? Which back in those days, which was a lot, because the mandate in like the law was only to even to pray or repent 3 times a day or 5 times. I forget the exact level. So like this disciple was thinking like, oh, this is really good for me to say. Yeah, like 7, like I have to forgive 7 times. Like I'm doing a lot of work. I'm doing great work. And then Jesus was like, nope.
He's like, no, bro.
Yeah, 7. He says 70 times 7, which is just another way of saying infinite. Like keep going until it's shifted, and there's always more to forgive.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting too. Now thinking about it now from like a, just from like a acupuncture perspective, like a movement of energy perspective, like when we get caught up on, because like if you're in that constant motion of forgiveness and realizing that it's a constant, I don't want to say battle is the bad word, but just like a constant process.
Yeah.
Like you're always moving the energy. You're never getting stuck. You're just kind of being fluid with life and understanding that people are going to do things to you. You're going to do things to people, and just being in that constant state of forgiveness and understanding that.
Yeah.
But then when we get caught up on something because something really bad happens to us and it like knocks us off that course because it's something that rubbed us in such a wrong way, we get caught up in that, like we lose that process of forgiveness, and it could get us stuck for months. And when that happens, the energy in our bodies gets stuck, and that stuck energy has to express somewhere.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times it expresses in anxiety or pain or just things, and people are walking around wondering why their body's hurt and they're like stressed all the time. And forgiveness is just one part of it. Like this constant movement needs to happen everywhere in life. But the more and more I learn about what can happen with our nervous systems and then with our bodies and how we think, the more and more I see like a lot of the issues in today's day and age is because like there's just little things going wrong everywhere, and they all add up because everything is connected. So like this resentment you hold towards someone and this lack of forgiveness could cause you to overeat, or it could cause you to not want to go to the gym, or it could cause you to be not the best version of yourself in other relationships, and then that ripples out and then you hurt other people. So it's like very like it's a very interesting process. But and I think we've talked about this a lot on all of our episodes about the idea of awareness and just understanding that there is a lot at play being a human, and we're all not going to be perfect. But when you're at that seat of awareness and you're aware and realizing what's happening and what's going on inside your head underneath the hood, you can begin to start making little changes, and those little changes can go a long way because of that same ripple effect. Like the ripple effect's bad, but it's also good depending on what actions you take.
Yeah. So let's get into it then of how, because I'm sure someone listening after all that we presented, it's like, okay, forgiveness is good. I got to do it.
Yeah.
And in an authentic way that is really transformational, not just, being a doormat, because it's not about making things okay. Like you said, Julie, is like set boundaries too, alongside with it. So let's go with how, like, what are some ways you all forgive?
Well, do you have a way that you walk clients through this process of forgiveness, like as a coach, like both of you?
Sure. I have,
like, honestly, like I don't have a process. Like for me, the one thing that I've been working on mostly is like my own self-forgiveness, because like there's things that I've been saying I want to do over the last like 6 or 7 months. And like, whenever I don't do them, I feel that like hurt, that I'm like like betraying myself.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of that kind of work. But
Yeah,
I just want to know if there's a process that you guys walk clients through when they come across this.
Yeah. So I'll share two. The first one is like, is very quick, very easy, rather simple. I'll go with. Second one's it's a bit more of a stepwise process. But the first one is about forgiving yourself. And I literally just used this past Tuesday or Wednesday, because I had scheduled to meet up with someone that I met at a networking group, and they were 30 minutes late, and I was feeling hurt. I was feeling disrespected because my time wasn't being respected. And as my frustration was building, I immediately already had in my head is like, okay, like I know this is something I'm going to have to forgive. Not even have to, but like if I want to really live a life that I love and live in love, then this is something I do want to forgive. And so the simple way to do it in that case is understanding and putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Like why? What was actually happening? And in that scenario, this person was she was in tons of traffic, which she did text me about, but then which she said she was going to be 15 minutes late. But then when it was a half an hour later, she said that she needed to get gas and was still behind with traffic and all that. And a part of me was thinking well, you could have left earlier, blah, blah, blah. Your mind will go to the logical ideas you're justified in why you're feeling that way, but that doesn't help. It doesn't shift the energy. And so I just worked on forgiveness, thinking like, okay, like she's doing the best that she can. And this definitely works for a lot simpler. Again, it's more simple in self-forgiveness and forgiving others in these simple situations, but it's literally just a shift in perception that, okay, instead of me thinking about me, what about this person? Like this person might be going through some shit that I have no idea about, which is absolutely true for anyone. Like we never know what someone's actually going through. So the shift in perception for me was just, okay, this, I don't understand it all, but what I can do is just make it, I could just forgive, not make it okay. Cause I did let her know, like I expressed my emotions, which I think is, it's needed. It's healthy in a healthy way, not blaming, but just saying, hey, this is how I felt because we had an agreement and it wasn't met. And yeah, this is how I feel. And so as even just letting her know, and that's, I think, a part of forgiveness, if you can, is expressing those emotions, whether that's to that person if you have the opportunity, but at least to yourself, like Julie were saying, acknowledging the emotions and really feeling yourself through it. So I guess the two parts of that one practice of forgiveness is acknowledging your emotions, feeling the emotions, and then shifting your perception. It's like, how could I see this from a different light?
Mm-hmm.
That's all, forgiveness ever really is. But there's other practices for sure that are more in depth. And the second one I want to share is it's a visualization practice that has really helped me. Like I mentioned, that one hurt that was like 5 years ago that I was forgiving for about 1.5 to 2 years before it really fully shifted. I was doing this exercise. The exercise is to first visualize, and this is for forgiving someone else that has hurt you or betrayed you. So the first thing is you visualize someone that you deeply love. It could be a mother, father, could be a brother, a sister, could be a significant other, could be a niece, nephew, someone or a friend that you just deeply love. So you bring their face to the image, like their image to the screen of your mind,
Mm-hmm.
and allow it to be there for some time, like 10, 20, 30 seconds, however long it will take for you to really generate a feeling of love, so that you're feeling that energy of love and expansiveness. And once you're feeling that, then you bring in the picture of the person you want to forgive. And what will happen is immediately there will be a drop in energy of love. It'll be like the resentment will come up. But as you do this process, it's not something you do once, it's something you do again and again. And as you continually do this, where you have the love and then you bring in a picture of that person you want to forgive, then eventually the energy of love will start to embed itself in the picture of the person you want to forgive, so that you're not holding that energy of resentment anymore to them, and it's transforming, it's transmuting. So that's one of the practice that has worked really well for me. And the final part about that is, as you forgive, assume the feeling of what it would feel like as if it's already forgiven fully. Like, what would that feel like in your body?
Mm-hmm.
And imagine that, and work on generating that emotion when in regards to that person you want to forgive. So those are my two practices.
I'm writing stuff down on my notes app as you're talking, so I don't forget what I want to share. There are a couple of things, especially for those who aren't in tune with visualization as much, and you need more of a concrete practice. Something that has really helped me is a loving kindness meditation. And it's, may I be truly happy, may I live in peace, may I live in love, may I know the power of forgiveness, and may I live in recognition that my life has deep meaning and true purpose. And what you do with that, and you can find this online. I don't know if I said it in order, but I'm pretty sure I did. You start with, I kind of merge with what you were talking about, thinking about people that you love. And so it's sitting down, and I literally will say this out loud, and I start saying those things for people that I love in my life. I say it for myself, and then I bring in the people that I'm trying to work on forgiving. And at first I was like, this isn't going to work. Like, what? Repeating these words, like, nah. And over time, I just committed to it. I'm like, every day I'm just going to do this and just see what happens. And what started happening for me is, at first I was just saying words for the people that I wanted to forgive. And then after time passed, I started feeling more emotions about it. And I was like, you know what? I do wish them happiness. I do wish them peace. I do wish them a life they'd love. And I wish they knew the power of forgiveness. And I wish that they knew that their life had deep meaning and good purpose. Like, I genuinely do wish that for these people. And what happened with that is it opened my heart, and it allowed a lot of the pain to release, and it allowed me to connect with the humanness that's present within all of us, that we are all hot messes, that we're all learning, we're all doing our best with our level of awareness. And another thing to really focus on for those of you who are listening right now who experienced childhood trauma and situations that were beyond your control. This is something that I've really, really struggled with, because we can get stuck in the why question. Why was I born into this family? Why did this happen to me? You know, why? And forgiving is so hard because so many of us are still processing the pain, and we're still, you know, if you have instances like in my case, like I have been working on healing PTSD and a lot of different things in my life. And it can be really hard to get into that mindset and feel safe to even begin that process of forgiveness. And so what has helped me is to really tune into the spirituality aspect of all of this. And for me, I genuinely believe that everything that has happened to me is for my evolution. And Mary talks about this all the time. She has a quote that she says, the content of our lives is the curriculum for our evolution. I don't believe that I would be the person that I am today. I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing today if I hadn't experienced what I experienced. I wouldn't be as compassionate for other people. And then recognizing on, if we were thinking about souls, and this is something that brings me peace, on the spiritual plane, on the soul level, everything has already been forgiven. Our souls all understand each other perfectly well. We all come from the same energy. We all return to the same energy, and we are pure love. And how that's expressed often is not skillfully, and recognizing that everybody's just functioning from what they know. And some people express and call for love in really, really unskillful ways. And they don't have that level of awareness. And most of us don't have the level of awareness. It's when we get into that personal development world where we talk about having an awakening. And what that means to me is we're awakened to all of our BS and all of our stuff that we're carrying around, and all of our patterns that are not just from our childhood. And it can be easy to go into blame for, well, I have this and I have to work through these patterns and this personal development because I was hurt by my parents. I was hurt by this situation or this person. And recognize that because of these things, while a lot of it was not okay, what happened to us or any regard, but it's allowed us to know ourselves and to evolve. And it has allowed me to grow in ways that I had never anticipated. It's given me the blessing of doing this personal development work. I wouldn't be in this. I wouldn't have the relationship with myself if I hadn't been through those things. I wouldn't have profound appreciation. For instance, my relationship with Chris, if I hadn't been through some of the abusive relationships that I went through, I don't know if my gratitude and even like in manifesting him into my life, I knew exactly what I didn't want, and it helped me align with what kind of life I want to create. And some of us have different things that happen to us that lead us to different parts of our life. And some of us have some intense childhood stuff. Other people don't, but just to recognize that that is part of our unique development as people. And so for me, stepping into that spiritual component of growth is how I can connect with the humanness in other people, and recognizing that they're just doing the best they can with their level of awareness. And start with, I am open to trying to forgive this person. That is ground one. That is the first step. And in deciding that and making that decision, that will shift everything for you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. I was thinking when you were talking about that too, just a lot of the parallels to our last episode, Kev, about like the stories we tell ourselves. I just kept thinking about how, like, as humans, we're the only species, that we know of that like has the ability to replay something over and over and over in our heads again and make us feel like that thing is happening over and over. Because as we know, like the mind can't tell the difference between something that we vividly imagine and something that's actually happening. And so like we use our capacity for thought and memory to torture ourselves so many of the times, because we keep replaying what happened to us over and over and over again. But we have the beauty as like these, we have this prefrontal cortex and then all these connections in our brains to actually go back to certain times and reframe what things mean for us.
Exactly.
But again, that's so hard for a lot of people to do because we're also stuck in that victim mindset. Like we almost like being there because we want someone to say, oh, it's going to be okay. Like you deserve to feel this way. It's fine. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's no hard work there. There's no like really hard work of going back and saying, you know what, maybe I can change this, like what the story means for myself. And so like, if anyone wants to get more information on that, like our last episode on story was really powerful for that too. Cause it like ties in here, but I just saw some parallels there too.
And it requires ownership.
Yeah.
And like with forgiveness, it requires ownership too, because even in the most painful situations, we did play a part in some regard.
Cause like you were there.
Because we were there.
Yeah.
And choices, and this is mostly focusing on, adult situations. But sometimes, like, for instance, the things and situations, like I made a choice to be there. I made a choice to stay in a relationship for a particular amount of time. But it was necessary for my growing. And so it's a difficult area to go into. And it's a lot easier to sit and say, all this happened to me. And another part is a lot of us connect with others by relaying stories of victimhood, and we'll see it in like gossiping and just like our means of communication as human beings. Like we'll often, like even you go into work and it's like, oh, this happened to me today. You wouldn't believe this happened to me. And like my life sucks. And like all of this, because we're used to seeing that as a way to connect with other human beings because we connect through emotion. And that's one of the things that makes us a unique part of our species that other animals don't do.
Yeah. Damn, it's a pretty lit episode.
Yeah, I know. So to wrap it up, to really bring this in for a landing, I think what at least what I want to underscore for this entire thing, and you said it best, Julie, is that to have compassion for yourself through the process, because it's not easy. And others, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think like that's another thing I hope that people get from this episode too, is like, first of all, like thinking about the forgiveness work that you have to do, but then also maybe thinking about the grudges you're holding against other people who haven't maybe forgiven you yet for doing some things, and realize that it's a two-way street and it's not as easy. Because we always tend to think that the world revolves around us and we're like the center of it, but everyone else is the center of their own world, and you're playing a part in theirs. So just having compassion for like where people are in their stories and like what part in their story you're playing, and just kind of just being aware of that interplay.
Yeah.
And another thing to tune into is that you don't have to do this process alone. And I'm not just saying like between like the three of us, but to really, I invite you and I challenge you to look in the areas of your life where perhaps maybe you could use some additional support in this, and recognize that, we live in a very individualistic, like, society where it's kind of like this lone ranger. I have to do everything on my own, or at least like that was a huge part of my personality, was like I was very independent. But it's okay to have support, and especially with forgiveness and really difficult things that we've experienced, to have the help of someone who's going to help hold the space for you and help you unwind the ball of thoughts or the ball of emotion. It's almost like a yarn ball that's present within your mind and your life, and help you in that process. And to know that that doesn't make you weak by any means. It just means that you're human, and as humans, we're biologically wired for connection and support.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's great. Yeah. And this is, I mean, the podcast is one way of having that support, but I definitely would echo what Julie says. Like, you can listen to something, but to have help to unravel what's actually in your mind, like you could do some of that work by yourself, but it's ultimately to do that work at an accelerated pace. That, and honestly, some of the work to actually have it done, it's actually required sometimes to have that support. So seek help beyond just a podcast and listening to it. Actually have some interaction with a group or a particular person, like a professional. So I definitely recommend that.
We'll drop like Julie's Instagram and website in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, Julie, where can people find you? Where do you want people to go?
So on Instagram, it's at JUL and then householder, which is my last name, which is literally spelled exactly how it sounds, like house and then holder, like someone holding a house. So it's JULHOUSEHOLDER, and that's my Instagram. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being here on the show.
Cool.
That's it for today. So thanks for tuning in, and we really hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. So any questions, any comments, just connect with us on Instagram. You could always DM us at Kevin Francis Carton
and at Chris J. Carton. And also, if you feel guided to, the one thing we do ask is for you to please rate the podcast and leave us a review. This way we can reach more people and impact more lives with this amazing information. With that, we'll see you on the next episode.